Hi there, my name is Mary, and I have done something really awful. I promise that I'm usually a very nice person, but something happened recently that just made me lose myself in the moment. Well, maybe if I tell you the story, you can let me know if I went too far. Although I hope that you will tell me that I was justified in my actions. You see, it all started about 6 years ago. I had just started a new job at a large advertising company. Most of our ads were for food manufacturers. I used to love how the companies would provide us with samples of their products so that we would better understand how to properly create ads that would help them sell merchandise. I was assigned to a team of 12 people, and one of them caught my eye immediately, Hudson. Oh, he was so incredibly handsome, and he had such confidence and style. The first time that I heard him say my name nearly made me faint from excitement. I should have known that he was trouble, but all I could see was an incredibly attractive man. And the way he was paying attention to me showed that he was just as enamored with me as well.
Oh, hey, Mary.
Oh, hi. Hudson. How are you today?
Much better now that I've seen you. And I see you are wearing that red dress of yours. You know I think you only wear it to make me go crazy.
Well, no. Thanks.
Of course. So our new client makes cookies, and it would be a shame if you ate too many of them and couldn't fit into that dress anymore. Be sure not to have too many samples, okay?
So, I know now that such comments should have been a major red flag, but he was so handsome and charming that I overlooked when he was very obviously being a jerk. The months passed, and eventually, Hudson asked me out on a date. It went really well, and soon after we began dating. Some of my friends told me that we weren't a good match, but I was just so blinded by my attraction for Hudson that I ignored them. Time ticked by, and months became years, and eventually I moved in with him, and things were really feeling like they were heading somewhere special. I was so happy that I had finally found Mr. Right, but that's when things began to go sour. At first, Hudson just seemed very distant and a bit standoffish. Hey, Hudson? Is everything okay? You seem a little distant.
Oh yeah, I'm fine. I've just been doing a lot of extra work for our latest client. Our boss has given me some individual assignments, and they just soak up a lot of my time and energy.
Part of me knew that he was lying, but again, I wanted to believe him because I loved him, and I wanted to believe that once the workflow slowed, that we would get back on track and feel less disconnected. It was around that time that I felt rather ill a few days in a row, and when I went to the doctor, they informed me that I was pregnant. At first, I felt terrified, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it was a blessing. With a baby on the way, I was sure that Hudson would want to spend more time with me and might even propose. But when I told him about it, he did not react the way I had wanted him to. Hey, Hudson, I have some pretty important news for you.
Oh yeah? What is it?
I went to the doctor yesterday and they told me that I'm pregnant. You're going to be a father. The look of shock on his face told me that he was less than impressed with my news, and after a few minutes of silence, he excused himself and left the apartment. I was devastated, and I felt completely rejected. It made me want to crawl into a hole and die, but then, hours later, Hudson came home and told me that he had just been caught off guard with the news, and that he was very happy. Part of me suspected that he was lying, but once again, I was in love, and I ignored my intuition. And so a couple weeks passed, and then one day Hudson came home with some chocolate cake, and he told me that it was all for me as a way of him apologizing for acting like a jerk about my pregnancy. I thanked him and cut myself and him a big slice each. Just as he was about to take a bite, though, he got a phone call and left the room to answer it. He told me as he left to not wait for him, and so I dug in and ate my slice within seconds. It was so good, in fact, that I cut myself a second slice and ate that one too. After a while, he finished his phone call and then came back to talk to me again. By that time, I had forgotten about the cake, and we talked for hours until it was bedtime. And in the morning, Hudson left for work early while I got ready for work. As I was getting dressed, I became violently ill and was forced to call an ambulance. By the time I got to the hospital, they told me that I had lost my baby. I was so frightened and confused that I sat there not willing to admit what had happened, and unwilling to call and tell Hudson that I had lost our baby. Distraught and nearly breaking from all the stress of it, I went home and collapsed on our bed and began to cry. when suddenly my stomach began to hurt. The hospital had told me that it would happen and that I could take over-the-counter medication to help with the pain. And so I went to the bathroom and checked the medicine cabinet for something that would help. I rarely ever take anything, and so I was going through the cabinet and cupboards in the bathroom, not knowing where to look, when I stumbled upon a box hidden in the back. I was curious, so I opened it and found some letters along with a box of a drug I didn't recognize the name of. When I looked up online what it was for, I found out that it could cause a miscarriage. I didn't know why Hudson would have such a drug, but then when I read the letters, it all made sense. The first one I opened was from Susan. She worked with Hudson and I and was around the same age as us. It read,
"Hello, Hudson. I love writing these love letters to you. It makes me feel like I'm back in high school again. I know that you are worried that Mary has ruined everything for us by getting pregnant, but don't worry. Just give her the drug and it will take care of her. Then we will be free to date out in the open and celebrate our love and our future child together as well. Don't worry. The drug I bought for you shouldn't hurt her, but it will abort the baby. It can sometimes cause complications, but I doubt that it will with her. I can't wait to start our lives together."
If what the letter was saying was true, then that meant that not only was Hudson cheating on me, but that he had impregnated Susan as well, and rather than own up to the fact that he no longer wanted to date me. He had instead drugged me so that I would abort his baby. I was so angry that I could barely see straight. But that was when I hatched a plan to get even, and here is where I may have crossed the line. Just like Hudson had done to me, I baked some cupcakes and placed the drug that he had used on me inside one of them and brought it to work. I made sure that I offered the one with the drug only to Susan. "Hi, Susan. A new cupcake company wants us to make an ad for them. Would you like to try one? They're chocolate, and I know that that's your favorite."
"Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. Thank you."
As soon as she finished the cupcake, I knew that I had gotten my revenge on her, but that still left Hudson. Sadly, I hadn't thought too far ahead on that, but then I noticed a sign that said that the elevator was out of order for service, and I knew that it was one that Hudson took every day for lunch. And so I waited about 10 minutes before lunch, and then I removed the signs that warned people not to use it, and then hid around a corner to watch Hudson get into it. I had just assumed that it would get stuck, and then he would be trapped in the elevator for hours on end. It wouldn't have been enough of a revenge, but it would at least make me feel a bit better. However, when he stepped inside and picked the ground floor, the elevator made some grinding noises, and then I heard a very loud snapping sound. I was shocked when I heard the elevator suddenly plummet to the ground floor. Thankfully, we were only on the 3rd floor, and Hudson didn't fall very far, but the crash it made when it hit the ground shook the whole building. I quickly put the signs back up and then ran back to my desk and started working. Now, later that day, we heard that Hudson had been rushed to the hospital as he had been seriously injured in the fall, only for the office to call for a second ambulance an hour later when Susan began screaming in pain. I felt so guilty, but also a bit giddy at hearing that both of them were suffering after what they had done to me. Weeks passed and neither of them returned to work, but the rumor around the office filled in all the details. As it turned out, Hudson had become paralyzed and was bound to a wheelchair and had lost the use of everything below the waist, which meant that not only would his legs not work again, but that he was incapable of having children as well. Without going into details, let's just say that his body was fairly mangled by the fall. And Susan wasn't in any better shape. She had an adverse reaction to the drug, and while it did cause her to miscarry her baby, it also caused bleeding, and the only way for the doctors to stop it was to remove her ovaries and uterus, which meant that she wouldn't be able to have children either. For a long time, I was worried that either of them would come back and try to get back at me for what I did, but they never did. I think they were scared of me and thought that it was in their best interest to just keep their distance. Both of them ended up quitting the company and moving on to other companies, but that meant that they would make less money since our company was the top employer in the country. So there you have it. I know what I did was wrong, but do you really think that it wasn't a little bit justified? I mean, what would you have done in my shoes?